They lied to you, not because they wanted to hurt you, but because they didn't know better. They told you success was a destination, a place you arrive at, a title you earn, a house you buy, a car you drive, a number in your bank account. They said if you work hard, say the right things, shake the right hands, maybe, just maybe, you'd get there. But they never told you the truth. The truth is, success isn't a finish line. It's not a reward. It's not something you get. Success is something you build every day, brick by invisible brick, when no one's watching and everything inside you wants to quit. Success is not what you have, it's who you become. It's in the way you speak when no one's listening. It's in the decisions you make when the pressure is real. It's in the quiet promises you keep to yourself when motivation is gone and discipline is the only thing left standing. You don't create success by shouting. You don't create success by faking. You don't create success by chasing the appearance of it. You create success by becoming a person who can't help but attract it because of how solid, how disciplined, how convicted you've trained your soul to be. Success is not given. It's not inherited. It's forged. Forged in early mornings and late nights. Forged in self-doubt and still showing up. Forged in the moment you decide to stop blaming your past, your parents, your boss, the system, and start owning every second of your future. Real success doesn't look like applause. It looks like alignment. It looks like getting up and doing the work when no one understands your vision. It looks like choosing integrity when shortcuts are everywhere. It looks like delaying gratification when everyone else is cashing out for comfort. It's the way you carry yourself when nothing is working, because you know something deeper is being worked on inside you. Success doesn't knock. It doesn't arrive. It doesn't show up at your door with balloons. Success is summoned, pulled toward you by the gravity of your character, by the energy of your excellence, by the clarity of your intention. And the truth is, success doesn't care how you feel. It responds to how you move. It doesn't answer to your hopes. It answers to your habits. It doesn't care what you post. It cares what you practice. You can talk like a winner and still lose if your actions betray your words. But when you align the unseen, your thoughts, your discipline, your mindset, with the actions you repeat daily, you become unstoppable. Because now, success isn't something you're chasing. It's something you're becoming, something you're radiating, something that echoes from your presence before you ever say a word. That is the truth they never told you. And now that you know, the question is simple. Will you build it? Success begins where most people stop, right at the edge of boredom, right in the middle of repetition, right after the excitement fades and the real work starts. Because here's what they never teach you. Success is boring. It's not glamorous. It's not highlight reels and fireworks. It's waking up over and over and choosing to do what matters most, even when it doesn't feel magical. It's mastering the mundane, falling in love with the fundamentals. It's writing when no one's reading, practicing when no one's clapping, serving when no one's noticing. And it's in those quiet repetitions, stacked day after day, that greatness is born. But the average mind can't handle boredom, so they quit. They jump to something new, something shinier, and they start again chasing dopamine, chasing validation, chasing a shortcut that doesn't exist. That's why you must choose to be different, to endure what most won't, to value consistency over novelty, depth over speed, mastery over popularity. Because in the long run, it's not the smartest who win. It's the most devoted. The ones who don't just dabble, they decide. Who don't just plan, they build. And the building isn't loud. It's not sexy. It's slow, relentless, brick by brick. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake slowness for failure. But slowness isn't failure. Slowness is foundation. The deeper the roots, the stronger the tree. And if you want success that lasts, not success that flashes and fades, you must dig. You must go deep when others go fast. You must go long when others go loud. You must show up when others sit down. Because the truth is, success won't meet you halfway. It will wait at the end of your commitment, at the edge of your effort, just past your excuses. That's where it lives. Not in your vision board, not in your hashtag, in your grit, in your grind, in your grace under pressure. In the days you want to give up but don't. In the choices you make when nobody would know if you slacked off. That's where real success is hiding, and it's watching. Watching how you treat the little things. Watching how you act when you think no one sees. Watching whether your standards bend when it gets hard. And if you prove yourself worthy not with talent but with tenacity, then it begins to move. Slowly at first, quietly, but then momentum. And momentum doesn't ask permission, it builds, it multiplies. It breaks barriers that logic said couldn't move. And suddenly, what once felt impossible becomes your new baseline. Because success doesn't change your life, you change your life. And success responds. So now we strip away the lies, the illusions, the highlight reels. We talk about the real, the part no one posts. The long nights with no reward. The early mornings with no applause. The moments when doubt wraps around your throat like a vice and whispers, "Who do you think you are?" The truth is, success isn't made in crowds. It's forged in the quiet. It's built in the unshared hours. It's who you are when no one is watching, when the cameras are off, when the inbox is empty, when the likes are silent. That's when it happens. That's when the real work begins. When you show up anyway. When you stay true anyway. When you deliver anyway. Because you know that success doesn't show up on schedule. It shows up for those who stay. Who keep the promise long after the mood has left. Who've trained themselves to act from conviction, not convenience. You don't need more time. You need more truth. The truth that most people aren't willing to face that comfort is a trap. That chasing approval will kill your authenticity. That waiting for motivation is just another excuse to do nothing. You don't need motivation. You need standards. You need systems. You need rituals that turn chaos into order, weakness into rhythm, and emotion into action. Because success isn't for the most emotional, it's for the most equipped. And equipping yourself means doing the work before the reward shows up. It means believing without proof, acting without praise, and rising without permission. That's what separates those who try from those who transform. That's why most people stay average. Because they wait to feel ready. Because they fear being misunderstood. Because they want guarantees in a game that only rewards grit. And here's the irony, the success you crave, the future you dream of, the life you're chasing. It's not hiding behind talent. It's hiding behind your patterns. Behind what you repeat, what you tolerate, what you allow, what you reinforce with your habits, your focus, your discipline. So ask yourself, what do I do when it's hard? What do I do when no one's clapping? What do I do when it's boring, slow, uncertain? Because how you answer that is your truth, not what you post, not what you say, what you do, daily, repeatedly, especially when it's difficult. That's where success is hiding, not in the future, but in your default settings. Change those, and everything changes. So here it is, the truth they never printed in books, never taught in classrooms, never said on stages filled with lights and smiles. Success is not a mystery. It's not magic. It's not reserved for the lucky or the loud. It's earned day by day by the ones who refuse to be ordinary, by the ones who choose alignment over applause, by the ones who are willing to be misunderstood today so they can be undeniable tomorrow. You want to create success? Then you must break the addiction to comfort. You must trade convenience for conviction. You must stop negotiating with your limitations and start renegotiating your future. Because success is not something you chase. It's something you construct. It's built in how you think, how you speak, how you show up, not once in a while, but always. It's not found in the grand gesture. It's found in the daily grit, in the hours no one counts. in the sacrifices no one sees, in the commitments no one claps for. It's what you build in the silence that echoes the loudest. And when you build long enough, true enough, hard enough, the world begins to respond, not immediately, not all at once, but unavoidably. Because success is not a lightning strike. It's a rising tide. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be brilliant. You need to be relentless, unapologetic in your standards, unshakable in your principles, unstoppable in your execution. That's what builds momentum. That's what creates results. That's what moves mountains. You want to rise? Then root yourself in truth, in growth, in mastery, not in image, not in hype, not in trying to look successful, but in becoming someone who no longer has to try. Because when success lives inside you, discipline, clarity, courage, ownership, it becomes impossible for the world not to feel it. You won't have to prove yourself. You'll just be it. Walk in rooms and shift the energy. Lead with calm when others panic. Stand firm when others beg for validation. Because success, real success, is magnetic, but only to those who carry it with quiet certainty. And that certainty doesn't come from ego. It comes from alignment. From building a life, a rhythm, a pattern where every thought, every word, every choice reflects the future you've decided to create. So now you stand at the edge. No more illusions. No more waiting. No more excuses dressed as logic. You know what it takes. You know it's not about luck, not about talent, not about someone picking you. It's about you picking yourself again and again and again until the world has no choice but to recognize what you've become. Because success doesn't come when you want it. It comes when you've earned it. Through choices no one applauded. Through sacrifices no one understood. Through repetitions no one respected until the result was undeniable. You want to know how to create success? You create it like a sculptor carves stone, by chipping away at everything that isn't you, at every lie, every fear, every excuse, every limitation that said stay safe when your soul said go. You create it by becoming the kind of person who can carry what you're asking for. Because success doesn't respond to hope. It responds to preparation. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you're ready for. So become ready. Get your mind right. Get your soul aligned. Build habits that match your ambition. Raise standards that make average uncomfortable. Set boundaries that protect your focus. Move like the future is yours because it is, if you're bold enough to claim it. There will be days you fall. Get up. There will be days you doubt. Get clear. There will be days you're tired. Keep moving. Because the truth is this: no one's coming to save you. But no one needs to, because you have everything inside you to save yourself. You don't need more time. You need more intention. You don't need more followers. You need more follow through. You don't need perfect conditions. You need a permanent decision. And when you make it, when you truly make it, life moves. The right people show up. The right doors crack open. The right momentum begins to flow. Because the universe doesn't respond to fear, it responds to faith expressed through action. So don't wait another year. Don't wait for more certainty. Don't wait for someone to validate your vision. Start. Start scared. Start unsure. Start underprepared. Just start. And don't stop. Because the truth about how to create success is this: you don't wish for it. You work for it. You become it. You embody it. And when you do, the world doesn't just watch, it follows. Let me tell you a secret most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Safety is the greatest illusion ever sold. And the price you pay for chasing it is your potential. Every great thing you've ever dreamed of, every bold goal you've dared to write down, lives on the other side of risk. Not because life is cruel, not because success is reserved for the lucky, but because growth requires movement, and movement requires uncertainty. You don't evolve in safety. You don't grow in comfort. And you definitely don't reach your greatest self by doing what you already know. You were not built to stay in one place. There is something in your spirit that craves expansion, that needs to break the walls of what's familiar so you can meet the version of you haven't become yet. And that's the real reason why risk is required. Because until you step into the unknown, you don't just avoid failure, you also avoid transformation. Until you take the leap, you'll never know what wings were waiting to unfold. You can stay safe, or you can become powerful. But you can't be both. Look around. Every person who has ever inspired you risked. They risked rejection. They risked failure. They risked being misunderstood, laughed at, walked away from. But they chose the discomfort of becoming over the illusion of security. Why? Because deep down they knew the risk of regret is always greater than the risk of failure. Because fear rarely announces itself as fear. It speaks with the voice of logic. It wears the mask of being realistic. It whispers things like, now's not the right time. What if you lose everything? Or, you're not ready yet. But that's not wisdom. That's not caution. That's camouflaged fear. Fear that has learned to speak in the language of justification. You call it timing. You call it strategy. You call it preparation. But what you're really doing is postponing your life. And here's what's cruel. Every day you delay your leap, your confidence erodes. Every time you ignore that inner pull, your belief withers. And one day you don't even need fear to stop you because you've trained yourself to stay small. Most people don't fail because they risked and lost. They fail because they never leapt at all. They wake up in the same job with the same habits, around the same people, telling the same story that they're waiting for the right moment. But the right moment is not something you wait for. It's something you decide to make. You don't become legendary by playing defense. You don't build an extraordinary life by avoiding discomfort. You rise by choosing to feel fear and move anyway. Every risk you avoid today becomes a boundary for tomorrow. And soon, you don't live in freedom. You live in a fenced version of your potential. You pace around your own limits and call it being responsible. But it's not responsibility. It's resignation. It's surrender. Dressed up in excuses. You want power? Then you have to be willing to risk comfort. You want growth? Then you have to be willing to risk familiarity. You want greatness? Then you have to be willing to risk being seen, being stretched, and maybe even failing but rising anyway. Because the truth is this, risk doesn't just shape outcomes. It reveals who you are. It pulls the curtain back. It strips away comfort and exposes your character. When the guarantee is gone, who do you become? Do you retreat or do you rise? You see, uncertainty is not your enemy, it's your training ground. It's where strength is formed. It's where resilience is forged, not by what you avoid, but by what you walk through. You don't become strong by reading about risk. You become strong by stepping into it again and again until the fear becomes familiar and the unknown becomes home. Because every time you risk, you reclaim power. Not because the outcome is guaranteed, but because you decided you were worth the attempt. You said, I will not let comfort keep me caged. You said, I'd rather be stretched than safe. You said, I am not here to play small. And something changes in you when you live like that. You stop begging life to hand you certainty, and you start building the capacity to lead through uncertainty. That's when people notice. That's when your energy shifts. That's when doors open. Not because you knocked, but because your energy breaks walls. Because people don't follow the most talented. They follow the bravest. The ones who risk being wrong. The ones who speak when it's hard. The ones who move when it's messy. The ones who go first. And here's the truth that sets the courageous apart. You don't rise by being fearless. You rise by being faithful in spite of fear. Then listen closely, because this is where it all comes together. Risk is not recklessness. It's not carelessness. It's not blind ambition. Risk is reverence. It's saying to life, I trust what's inside of me more than I fear what's in front of me. It's honoring your calling with movement. It's proving to yourself that your dreams are not decoration, they are destiny. And Destiny doesn't respond to hesitation. It responds to boldness. There is no such thing as a meaningful life without risk. Because anything worth living for, love, purpose, freedom, greatness, it all demands something of you. It asks you to let go of who you were so you can become who you're meant to be. It asks you to lose certainty and find conviction. It asks you to surrender comfort and pick up courage. It asks you to walk forward even when the road is foggy, even when the voices say, play it safe, even when your knees shake and say, I'm doing it anyway. Because you don't get to keep your old life and build a new one. You don't get to keep your comfort and claim your calling. You don't get to stay safe and rise. You have to choose. And here's the miracle. When you choose risk, you unlock revelation. You meet parts of yourself that only pressure can reveal. You discover strength you didn't know you had. You become magnetic not because you're fearless, but because you've been through fear and kept going. And soon you'll realize the risk wasn't risking at all. The real risk was never risking anything. The real danger was letting the dream die inside you because you were too afraid to trust the wings that were waiting to grow. So today, if you hear that voice calling you to stretch, to leap, to move, listen to it. That's not recklessness. That's not foolishness. That's life inviting you into greatness. And your job is to say yes. Most people write to be liked. But influence, real influence, isn't built through popularity. It's built through precision, through words that carry weight, through sentences that don't just inform, they move people. Because in business, writing isn't a task, it's a weapon. Every email, every post, every message is a test. Can you hold attention? Can you create clarity? Can you spark belief? If not, you're invisible. But if you can, you rise. Because those who shape words shape minds. And those who shape minds move markets. That's the writing you're here to master. Not fluff, not filler, not empty noise camouflaged as cleverness. But writing that commands, that shifts, that ignites, that cuts through the fog like a sword through silence. Writing that gets clients to trust, teams to move, investors to lean in, buyers to click, and people, real people, to feel seen, understood, and inspired to act. But let's get one thing straight. Powerful writing in business isn't about sounding smart. It's about making them feel smart. It's not about showcasing your vocabulary. It's about unlocking their vision. It's not a performance, it's a service. The better you write, the more clearly they see themselves succeeding with you. So where does it begin? It begins with clarity. Clarity isn't just a nice thing. It's the thing. If your message isn't clear, it doesn't matter how creative it is. Confused people don't buy. They don't follow. They don't move. And in a world drowning in content, clarity is a lifeline. To write with clarity, you must think with clarity. You must know exactly who you're talking to, what they're feeling, what they fear, and where they want to go. You're not writing to impress them. You're writing to join them in their tension and then show them the way out. Clarity isn't soft. It's not boring. It's sharp. It cuts through the fog. It says, here, this is the truth. This is what matters. This is what's possible. And when done right, it pierces through resistance and lands straight in the heart. Then comes rhythm. Because writing isn't just what you say, it's how it flows. Influence lives in cadence. Power lives in pacing. You don't just type words. You conduct them. You orchestrate tension. You shape silence. You decide when to punch, when to pause, when to press, when to breathe. A powerful sentence is more than language. It's a lever. It lifts belief. It moves action. It opens doors in the reader's mind that were previously locked. So write like a sculptor, cut everything that doesn't serve the form. Write like a musician, feel the beat of your words. Write like a boxer, know when to jab, when to strike, and when to hold. And never forget, emotion is the engine. Logic informs, but emotion transforms. If your writing doesn't move them, It won't matter how accurate it is. If they don't feel something, they won't do anything. That's not manipulation, that's connection. Because before people decide what's true, they decide what's real. And real always feels first. You're not just giving information. You're giving permission. Permission to believe, to dream, to change. And every line should walk them closer to the person they want to become with you, through you, because of what you wrote. Tone is the soul of your writing. It's not just what you say, it's how they hear it in their head. Tone is what makes someone lean in instead of scroll past. What makes your words feel like a conversation instead of a commercial. What makes your voice unforgettable. In business, your tone must carry confidence without ego, warmth without weakness, authority without arrogance. It's the difference between shouting and shining, between pressure and presence. A confident tone says, I've done the work. A clear tone says, you're safe here. A real tone says, I see you. And when your writing embodies that energy, it doesn't just transfer information, it transfers trust. That's influence. And that's how you win. Next, anchor your writing in identity. Because in a noisy marketplace, the strongest voice always wins. But a strong voice doesn't mean loud. It means rooted. Rooted in your beliefs, your style, your rhythm, your stance. Don't sound like everyone else. Don't chase the trending tone. Don't water yourself down to appeal to more people. That's how you end up reaching no one. The more specific your voice, the more magnetic your writing becomes. Be bold, be direct, be unmistakable. Because the truth is, if your writing sounds like it could come from anyone, then it won't mean anything to anyone. Specificity is your scalpel. Vagueness is the enemy of persuasion. If your reader has to guess what you mean, they're already gone. Your writing should not only be vivid, it should be surgical. Every word should feel chosen. Every line should feel earned. Don't say, better business. Say, triple your recurring revenue in 6 months without adding staff. Don't say, help you grow. Say, help you break through that revenue ceiling you've been stuck under for 2 years. Specific writing is felt. It's trusted. It hits like truth. Because it doesn't just speak to the mind, it mirrors the reader's experience. And that's where storytelling comes in. Stories are not entertainment. They're transportation. A great story doesn't just teach, it transfers. It takes the reader from where they are into a moment, a lesson, a vision. And inside that story, they don't just learn, they feel. And once they feel, they move. Don't just tell them you overcame something, show them the night you almost quit. Don't just claim your strategy works. Walk them through the mess before the breakthrough. Don't just state your values. Show them what you said no to when it would have been easier to say yes. Because story makes your writing stick. It doesn't bounce off the surface. It roots itself inside them and lingers. And here's the truth no one wants to hear. If your words don't linger, your brand won't either. Authority isn't declared, it's demonstrated. And in writing, authority doesn't come from saying, I'm an expert. It comes from writing in a way that proves you are without ever needing to say it. Because real authority doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't boast. Real authority is quiet power. It's confidence wrapped in clarity. It's precision that pierces without pressure. And the most powerful way to write with authority is to write like someone who knows the struggle, knows the solution, knows the stakes, and knows how to lead someone from confusion to conviction. Your writing builds authority when it leads, not when it entertains, not when it impresses, when it leads, line by line, word by word. It walks the reader from, I don't know what to do, to, this is the way forward. And the secret? It's not about you. It's about them. The more deeply you understand them, the more undeniable your authority becomes. Because in a world full of writers who want attention, the ones who earn influence are the ones who offer clarity. So, how do you convert without selling? How do you move hearts and wallets without manipulation? You stop pushing. and you start aligning. You write in a way that reflects their reality. You meet them in their moment. You articulate their problem better than they've ever heard it described. And then, when you present the offer, it doesn't feel like a pitch. It feels like a path. Persuasion isn't about pressure. It's about precision. It's not about changing minds. It's about unlocking what's already there. That means knowing the real pain underneath the surface level complaint. That means naming the desire behind the data. That means painting a picture of the outcome so clear they can feel themselves living in it. Conversion writing is service-driven. It's not, here's why I'm amazing. It's, here's what you've been stuck in, and here's how we walk out together. And if you want your writing to build lasting influence, it must reshape identity. Because the most powerful writing doesn't just shift thoughts. It shifts self-perception. It takes someone from, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stuck, I'm behind, to, I'm capable, I'm ready, I'm done waiting. That kind of writing doesn't talk at people. It talks to the part of them that's been waiting to be woken up. So write to the future version of your reader, the version that's braver, bolder, clearer. Speak to their potential, not their pain. Don't just show them what's wrong, show them who they can become. And when they feel seen by your writing, when they recognize themselves in your words, they won't just follow you. They'll thank you. They'll remember you. And they'll move because of you. Because at the end of the day, writing isn't just about communication. It's about creation. You are not just writing content. You are building bridges, opening doors, lighting torches. You are creating momentum where there was once paralysis, vision where there was once fog, power where there was once doubt. And when you understand that, you stop treating your writing like a task on a to-do list. You start treating it like the lever that moves everything else. Because it is. The right words can unlock a sale. The right message can shift a market. The right sentence can rewire a person's self-belief for life. That's not hype. That's the quiet truth behind every influential brand, every meaningful movement, every lasting business. Someone wrote something powerful enough to make someone else believe again. So if you're serious about building influence in business, don't start with your funnel. Start with your pen, with your process, with your intention, with your obsession with clarity, your reverence for rhythm, your demand for depth. Because writing isn't something you do once the real work is done. Writing is the work. It's where the vision gets shaped. It's where the voice gets found. It's where the value gets proven before you ever speak a word or sell a thing. And the most successful people in business, they write with identity. They write with intention. They write like leaders, not because they want attention, but because they want to serve at scale. So don't just write to publish. Write to pierce, to provoke, to clarify, to convert, to empower, to elevate, to lead. And when you do that, when your writing starts breathing with the heartbeat of someone who cares, people will notice. They'll feel it. They'll remember it. And more importantly, they'll respond to it. Because writing done right doesn't just create content. It creates connection. It creates conviction. And in the end, it creates change. So write like it matters. Because it does. Write like your future depends on it. Because it might. Write like it's your legacy being carved, one line at a time. Because that's exactly what it is. And when it's all said and done, and your business has scaled, and your brand has grown, and your influence has reached places you never imagined, you'll look back and realize it started with one sentence, one truth, one choice to write like a leader, and never look back. There comes a time in every life when you stop asking for permission, when you stop waiting for the world to get easier, when you stop bending to the noise and start listening to something far more powerful, your own alignment. That's the moment your life changes. Not when you get a raise, not when you buy the house, not when the world applauds. It changes the moment you finally understand this. There are rules, unwritten, unshakable, unbreakable, not rules made by society, not imposed by someone else's expectations, but rules carved into the very fabric of how excellence, purpose, and fulfillment are born. And when you align your life with these rules, not just at work, not just in success, but in everything you do, that's when you rise. So today, I'm not here to inspire you. I'm here to recalibrate you, because deep down, you already know these truths. You've felt them in the silence, in the struggle, in those moments when you could have chosen comfort, but something in your soul whispered, go further. That whisper is your integrity. And today, we give it a voice. 1. Be the kind of person people can count on, even when it's inconvenient. Especially then, because the world is full of people who show up when it's easy. You will be remembered for how you act when it's not. Show up when no one claps. Serve when no one thanks you. Keep your word not because someone's watching, but because you are. Reputation is what they say about you. But character is what you say to yourself when no one's looking. Be undeniable in your integrity, unshakable in your discipline, relentless in your follow-through, because trust is the currency that builds empires, and it's earned brick by brick through every quiet decision. 2. Never outsource your standards. Your standard is your signal to the world. It tells people what you will accept and what you never will. And if you let the world lower that for you, even once you teach them how to treat you, you teach your job, your relationships, your friends, even your own mind, that mediocrity is okay, but it's not. You weren't built to tolerate average. You were built to lift the bar for yourself and for others. 3. What you tolerate becomes your truth. Tolerate gossip, you become noise. Tolerate chaos, you lose your clarity. Tolerate excuses, and they will multiply. Because every time you allow less than your values, you make a silent agreement to stay small. So choose wisely. Not out of fear, but out of alignment. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You just need to be clear, crystal clear. 4. Honor the work even when it's unseen. There is no such thing as behind the scenes, because every detail is building who you are becoming. Sweep the floor like it's a stage. Send the email like it's a signature. Train like someone's life depends on it, because one day it might. Excellence is not a result. It's a rhythm, a way of walking, a way of breathing, a way of treating the ordinary with extraordinary care. That's the secret the world never told you. The difference between average and exceptional is rarely talent. It's devotion. 5. Protect your energy like it's gold. Because it is. Energy is your presence, your perception, your power. It's how you enter a room. It's how you recover from loss. It's how you build when you're tired and lead when you're under fire. And in a world addicted to speed, noise, and distraction, your energy is under attack every day. Guard it. Don't give it away cheaply. Not to drama, not to doubt, not to distractions disguised as opportunity. Choose your focus the way a warrior chooses his weapon. Deliberately, strategically, unapologetically. 6. Learn faster than you fail. Because failure isn't your enemy, stagnation is. Mistakes don't ruin you, denial does. If you're willing to extract the lesson, nothing is wasted. The biggest difference between those who win and those who stay stuck isn't intelligence. It's integration. It's what you do after the fall, after the embarrassment, after the disappointment. Do you justify or do you evolve? Because failure is feedback, and feedback is gold if you're willing to mine it. So fall, but fall forward. Bleed, but build. Break, but rebuild with better hands, better eyes, better wisdom. 7. Make peace with repetition, because mastery is boring before it's brilliant. Most people quit because they confuse boredom with misalignment. But repetition is not failure, it is refinement. The greats don't look for new all the time. They look to go deeper. They repeat the fundamentals. They return to what matters. They swing the hammer again and again until every strike becomes poetry. Until what was once effort becomes instinct. Until excellence becomes identity. 8. Keep promises to yourself like your life depends on it, because it does. Every time you say, I'll do it, and you don't, you teach your mind to distrust your word. And when you stop trusting your word, You stop trusting your power. You don't need more motivation. You need more follow-through. Start small if you must, but start and don't stop. Because your confidence is not built in hype. It is built in hidden, quiet, gritty consistency. Brick by brick, breath by breath. 9. Stop trying to be liked. Start trying to be effective. You are not here to decorate the room, you are here to shift it. You are not here to be popular. You are here to be aligned. Let people misunderstand you. Let them label you. Let them judge your pace. Just don't let them write your story. Speak truth anyway. Act with intention anyway. Build what matters anyway. Because a life built on authenticity will outlast every trend, every critic, every crowd that ever walked away. 10. Never forget who you're becoming. Because in the daily grind, it's easy to get lost in the doing and forget the becoming. But the real work is not what you produce. It's what you embody. It's not just what you accomplish, it's who you become in the process. And when you measure success by alignment, not applause, by progress, not perfection, you win at a level the world can't define and can never take from you. So what do you do now? You live the rules. Not sometimes, not when it's convenient, not when you're motivated, but every day, in silence, in pressure, in progress. Because these rules aren't here to decorate your journal, they are here to define your legacy. Anyone can talk about success. Anyone can wear ambition like fashion. But only a few will live by code, not because it's easy, but because it's true. You want to rise? Then root yourself. You want freedom? Then earn it through discipline, through devotion, through decisions that don't look glamorous but make you unshakable when the storms come. Because they will come. And when they do, your golden rules are not just ideas, they're your shelter, your spine, your sword. Let others chase approval. Let others seek applause. You build. Quietly, fiercely, consistently. Because the world doesn't remember noise. It remembers impact. It remembers those who walked in truth when it was hard. Those who built when it would have been easier to break. Those who stood tall when the world tried to make them small. These rules, they're not about being perfect. They're about being aligned, about building a life where your heart, your habits, your words, and your walk all say the same thing. And that kind of life, that's power, that's peace, that's purpose. So write these rules on your mirror, speak them into your mornings, let them echo in your silence. And when no one's watching, that's when you live them loudest. That's when you become undeniable. Because in the end, it's not the world's rules that shape you, it's the ones you refuse to break for anyone. Live by those. And the life you're chasing will start chasing you. There is a force inside you right now, untapped, unshaken, unbreakable. Not because you're special in some mystical way, but because you are human. And being human means being born with potential so vast, most people never touch it. They don't touch it because they've been taught not to. Taught to stay quiet. Taught to play safe. Taught to follow instead of led. Taught to dim the light so others feel comfortable in the dark. But let me tell you something you might have forgotten. You were not born to be manageable. You were born to be magnificent. And the greatest tragedy, it's not that people fail. It's that they never try because they've never seen what's possible inside themselves. There is power in you, not the loud kind, not the showy kind, but the kind that shifts everything the moment you awaken it. It's the power of clarity, the power of conviction, the power of choice. You don't need to look for it outside. It's already there, buried beneath layers of self-doubt, shame, silence, and the stories you've repeated for years. Stories like, I'm not enough. I'm too late. Someone else already did it better. Lies. Every one of them. You want to harness your power? Then you must confront what's burying it. You must silence the world long enough to hear the roar inside you. You must walk into the storm, not because it's safe, but because that's where your strength is forged. You must choose to stop asking for permission and start giving yourself authority. Because the truth is, no one is coming to unlock you. That key, it's in your hands. And the lock is not on the door, it's in your mind. Because the most dangerous lie you've ever believed is that your power needs to be given to you. That somehow someone out there holds the switch. That someday when conditions are right, when the timing is perfect, when the fear goes away, then you'll rise. No, you don't rise when it's easy. You rise when you decide that enough is enough. You rise when the pain of staying small finally outweighs the fear of being great. You rise when you stop negotiating with mediocrity. When you stop waiting to be saved. When you stop blaming the past and start building your future brick by brick, belief by belief, choice by choice. Because the truth is this: you are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not behind. You're just dormant. And dormancy ends the moment you decide to wake up. You want to harness your power? Then stop trying to feel ready. Stop trying to get it perfect. And start moving through resistance. Start owning your identity. Start protecting your fire. Because you have one. Even if it's just a flicker right now, it's there. And that flicker, it's enough. Because every wildfire started with one stubborn spark. But sparks need oxygen. They need belief. They need motion. They need you to breathe life into them through action. Not once, but every day. You can't outsource this. You can't delegate your destiny. You can't fake power. You either own it or it owns you. And let me say this clearly. You don't become powerful when the world sees you. You become powerful when you finally see yourself. When you look in the mirror and stop asking, what am I missing? And start declaring, everything I need is already within me. Then let's finish this not with inspiration, but with ignition. Because real power isn't loud. It doesn't scream for attention. It commands space without begging for it. It walks into the room and the atmosphere changes. Not because of volume, but because of presence. And presence comes from wholeness, from finally standing in the truth of who you are, without apology, without disguise, without dilution. That's the moment everything changes. When you stop playing small to protect someone else's comfort. When you stop shrinking because the world told you to be humble. Listen, humility isn't pretending you're less. True humility is owning your gifts so deeply you serve the world with them. Because your power isn't for domination. It's for illumination. It's to walk so boldly in your light that others remember their own. You want to know the secret to real, unstoppable power? It's not control. It's not domination. It's not perfection. It's integrity. It's alignment. It's living in such deep truth that nothing can shake you out of it. No criticism, no praise, no failure, no fame. Just you, solid, steady, grounded in who you are and where you're going. Because once you harness the power within you, the world outside you can no longer control you. You no longer chase you, attract. You no longer beg you, build. You no longer ask you, embody. And people feel it. They listen differently. They trust you. Not because you're the loudest, but because you're the clearest. Because in a world full of noise, you walk with signal. So stop asking when it's your time. Stop waiting for the right moment. Stop thinking you need more credentials, more followers, more permission. You already have everything it takes. You always have. And if you'll just make the decision today, right now, to stop ignoring the fire and start feeding it, start fanning it, start living from it, then you'll wake up one day and realize you didn't find your power. You remembered it. You reclaimed it. You finally let it lead. And from that day forward, you didn't just live. You lit the way. Leadership is not a title. It's not a corner office or a nameplate or 1,000 followers nodding in agreement. Leadership is a weight, a sacred responsibility, a fire that must be carried not for your own glory, but for the growth of others. And if you do it right, you don't just lead people, you lift them. You don't just give orders, you give identity. Because real leadership is not about being in charge. It's about being charged with a vision that's bigger than you, a purpose that stretches beyond your comfort, and a commitment to truth that does not waver when tested. And here's the truth. Every generation redefines leadership. But the principles, the truths, they do not change. They echo through time. They whisper through the decades. They burn through noise and trends and surface-level hype. Because leadership, at its core, is timeless. It is not dictated by technology. It is not confined to platforms. It is not reshaped by fashion or filtered by popularity. It is a foundation, a way of being, a standard you carry even when the world is too distracted to notice. The greatest leaders, from ancient kings to modern CEOs, from battlefield generals to high school mentors, all carry the same flame. It's the flame of responsibility, the flame of vision, the flame of sacrifice. They all understood one thing. Leadership isn't about having power over people. It's about holding power for people. It's about becoming the kind of person others can trust with their future. And trust, that's the real currency. You don't lead with fear. You don't lead with manipulation. You don't lead with charisma alone. You lead with trust, earned slowly, kept fiercely. And trust is built not in speeches, but in standards, in how you show up when the spotlight is gone, in how you respond when the pressure rises, in how you treat those who can't offer you anything but honesty. If people trust your character, they will follow your vision. So, if you want to lead, truly lead, you must first lead yourself. Because you cannot take people somewhere you haven't gone. You cannot demand discipline in others if you make excuses in private. You cannot call for vision if you're still hiding from clarity. Leadership begins not with authority, but with alignment. You must become the standard you speak about. You must become the proof before you become the plan. Because people don't follow instructions. They follow example. And this is where most fail. They want the influence without the inner work. They want the loyalty without the integrity. They want the spotlight without carrying the torch. But you can't fake depth. You can't shortcut trust. You either embody the values or you violate them. There is no neutral ground. Because every time you speak, your team is watching. Your family is watching. The next generation is watching. And what they need from you is not inspiration without substance. They need consistency without cracks. Your words mean nothing if your habits scream something else. Your mission is just noise if your mindset is still at war with itself. That's why real leadership begins in silence, in the moments before the decisions, in the way you carry your own chaos, in the standards you set when no one is looking. You don't wait to lead when the time is right. You lead when it's hard, when it's unclear, when it's unpopular. That's when your voice becomes a compass, not a microphone. Because leadership is not about being liked. It's about being trusted. And trust often requires saying what no one else will say, doing what no one else wants to do, making the call that others will avoid. You cannot fear being misunderstood, because if your values are true, they will outlive the criticism. And if your vision is real, the right people will find their way to it, not because you shouted louder, but because you stood stronger. And when it comes to generations old and new, the true test of leadership is not how much you teach, but how much you're willing to learn. You must be rooted in wisdom, but flexible in expression. You must honor the past without becoming trapped in it. You must welcome the future without forgetting what matters. Every generation sees the world differently, and that's not a threat. It's an opportunity. Because leadership that lasts is leadership that listens. Younger generations don't want perfect leaders. They want honest ones, ones who admit mistakes, ones who ask questions, ones who know the weight of their words. And older generations, they want relevance, but they also want reverence. They want to know their sacrifices meant something, that their scars became bridges, that their lessons are not discarded, but woven into progress. That's your job. To stand between generations, not as a divider, but as a bridge. To take the strength of the past and the potential of the future and forge something timeless. Something rooted in character, not clout. In courage, not convenience. Because the leaders who last, the ones remembered long after their voices fall silent, are not the loudest in the room. They are the deepest. They don't need to dominate. They don't need to shine. They need to serve. And not in a way that begs for recognition, but in a way that builds people, that raises standards, that strengthens culture, that multiplies vision through the hearts of others. Because service isn't weakness. It's the highest form of strength. It says, I am here not to be above you, but to walk with you. And to serve like that, you must be humble enough to admit you don't know everything. You're not always right. You're not the hero in every story. In fact, great leaders don't need to be the hero at all. They raise heroes. They pour courage into others. They don't hoard the light, they reflect it. And in doing so, they create movements, not monuments. But that kind of leadership, it requires radical ownership. No blaming, no hiding. No, that's not my fault. If something breaks under your watch, you own it. If someone falls under your leadership, you learn from it. You don't run from responsibility, you grow inside it. Because leadership isn't about comfort, it's about accountability. You take the hit. You stand in the fire. You look people in the eye and say, this is on me and I'll fix it. And that kind of ownership builds resilience. Because let's be honest, leading people will break your heart. It will test your patience. It will stretch your capacity. You'll be misunderstood, betrayed, ignored. You'll give everything and watch people walk away like it was nothing. And still you stay. Still you build. Still you rise. Because resilience isn't just about bouncing back. It's about growing stronger while you carry the weight. It's about continuing to believe in the mission, even when no one else claps, even when the room goes quiet, even when your hands shake and your voice is tired. You show up again and again and again, because your presence, your consistency becomes the proof, the evidence that says this matters, the signal that says you're not alone. Because sometimes the most powerful leadership isn't in your speeches. It's in your stability. And if you really want to lead across generations, you must give more than instructions. You must give identity. Help people see who they are. Remind them of what they can become. Pull out the greatness that's hiding beneath insecurity, pain, and doubt. That's not management. That's ministry. That's not systems. That's spirit. That's the difference between a boss and a builder. So build. Speak life into people who are used to silence. Believe in those who've forgotten how to believe in themselves. Lead in such a way that your presence is not about being needed, but about empowering others to no longer need you. That's legacy. That's leadership. And when your leadership becomes a mirror, when people see their own potential more clearly because of how you showed up, then you haven't just led a generation. You've lifted it. Let me tell you something most people never figure out. The world doesn't move on truth alone. It moves on belief. It moves on influence. It moves when someone somewhere says the right words in the right tone at the right time, and suddenly doors open, minds shift, resistance melts, and people say the one word that changes everything. Yes, not because they were forced, not because they were tricked, but because something about that moment, something about you gave them permission to believe, to trust, to follow, to take a chance. This is the art of persuasion. And let me be clear, this is not manipulation. This is mastery. The mastery of connection, the mastery of energy, the mastery of intent. Because when you truly understand what makes people say yes, you no longer chase opportunities, you create them. You don't hope for influence, you command it. You don't beg for attention, you earn it. With presence, with power, with purpose. And the first secret, the foundation of all persuasion is certainty. People do not follow need. They do not follow desperation. They do not follow indecision. They follow certainty. The one who moves people is the one who knows who they are, what they believe, and where they're going, and they say it like they mean it. If your voice trembles, the room will doubt. If your conviction is weak, the world will hesitate. But when your soul speaks with alignment, with conviction, with clarity, you don't just communicate, you transmit. Certainty is magnetic. It draws people in, not because you're louder, but because you're clearer. And clarity is the rarest language of all. So I'll ask you, no. Were you clear on who you are? Because persuasion doesn't start with other people. It starts with persuading yourself. You must become the first believer in what you say. You must be sold on the value you bring. You must know in your bones that your offer, your message, your vision is worth leaning into. And if you don't believe it, no one else will. This is the internal work that fuels external power. Next comes the rhythm of words. The way you speak matters. Have you ever noticed how some people can speak a single sentence and the room quiets, while others ramble for hours and say nothing of weight? It's not just what they say, it's how they say it. Great persuaders speak with structure. They speak with music. Their words have a pulsy rise and fall, a cadence that feels inevitable. Not rushed, not chaotic intentional. Because humans don't just respond to logic, they respond to feeling. They say, I don't know why, but I just feel like I can trust her. I can't explain it, but something about the way he said it, it stuck with me. That's not an accident. That's technique. That's tone. That's the art of landing your words in the nervous system, not just the brain. But none of that works without presence. Presence is persuasion's secret weapon. When you are truly here, when you are fully in the moment, not scattered, not rehearsing, not doubting, but rooted, people feel it. Presence is rare in a distracted world. And anything rare becomes valuable. So the moment you show up fully attuned, alert, listening, grounded, you become powerful. Most people live like ghosts, half present, half distracted, half alive. But when you bring your whole self to a conversation, when your eyes say, I see you, when your energy says, I'm with you, when your words say, I understand you, people lean in, they open, they soften, and the gate to influence swings wide open. And let's talk now about the greatest tool in the persuader's arsenal. Questions. See, amateurs speak to convince. Masters ask to uncover. Because the secret to getting people to say yes is not to tell them what they need, it's to help them realize it themselves. And nothing pulls truth from the soul faster than the right question. Why do you think that hasn't worked for you yet? What would it mean to finally get this handled? If you knew success was guaranteed, what would you do next? These are not random. These are precision tools designed to bypass the surface and hit the core. Because here's the truth. People don't change because of your advice. They change because of their own realizations. So the great persuader is not a preacher, they're a mirror. They hold space for clarity to emerge. They create conditions for truth to rise. They ask, they listen, and they reflect what others have been too afraid or too distracted to see. And then only then do they guide. Because persuasion is a dance, not a dictatorship. It's a rhythm of give and take, speak and pause, offer and wait, push and release. And just like a dance, it requires attunement to mood, to energy, to resistance. You don't bulldoze someone into yes. You invite them into it. You make the path appealing, obvious, irresistible. And the way you do that is through story. Facts tell, stories sell, because stories bypass skepticism. They slip under defenses. They make people feel something. A statistic makes you nod. A story makes you believe. You can say 90% of people fail because they never take action. And someone might agree. But if you say, let me tell you about a man I knew, talented, hungry, filled with potential, but he waited too long. He kept saying, next week, next year, when I'm ready. And when life finally handed him the opportunity, he had no fire left to take it. That hits different. That lands because we are wired for story. We see ourselves in story. And when someone sees themselves in your message, they say yes. Not because of you, but because of them. Because something clicked inside. Something lit up. Something said, "This is me, and I need to move." So here's what you must remember. Persuasion is not about pushing. It's about awakening. It's not about conquest. It's about connection. It's not about getting your way. It's about showing someone their way more clearly, more powerfully, more vividly than they've ever seen it before. This is not about trickery. This is about transformation. And you can only lead others there if you've walked it yourself. So become persuasive not by learning tactics, but by becoming magnetic. By being so aligned with your message, so congruent with your energy, so present with your words, so generous with your intent, that people don't just hear you, they trust you. Because the most persuasive person in the room is not the one with the loudest voice, it's the one with the clearest spirit. And when your spirit speaks, the world says yes. There is another truth no one talks about enough. Persuasion, real persuasion, begins before a single word leaves your mouth. It begins with how you see the world, because your view of people determines your approach to people. If you see people as obstacles, you'll try to overpower them. If you see people as wallets, you'll try to sell them. But if you see people as mirrors, reflections of the same hunger, fear, longing, and hope that lives in you, then you don't try to conquer them, you connect. And when people feel that you see them not just as a means to an end, but as human, worthy, important, they listen. Not because you demanded attention, but because you earned resonance. You touched something ancient inside them. You reminded them that beneath the noise, the roles, the masks, we are the same. That's the paradox of persuasion. You become more powerful the moment you stop trying to win people and start trying to understand them. That's when everything shifts, because now you're not speaking at them. You're speaking from within them. And here's where clarity comes in. You cannot persuade if you are not clear. If your mind is foggy, your message will fumble. If your intention is scattered, your influence will fall flat. The world is full of noisome millions of voices shouting at once. So when you speak, you better make it count. You better speak with a blade, not a broom. Cut through, pierce through, hit the heart. That means before you open your mouth, you must ask yourself, what do I really want them to feel? What do I want them to know? What decision do I want them to make, not just in their mind, but in their bones? Clarity sharpens your energy, and people can feel when you're clear, just like they can feel when you're bluffing, when you're vague, when you're uncertain, even if your words are smooth. Don't underestimate the radar people have for realness. You want to be persuasive? Be clear. You want people to say yes? Give them a reason to trust your direction. Because clarity leads, and people want to follow someone who knows where they're going. Now let's talk about vision. Because persuasion isn't just about solving problems, it's about casting possibilities. The greatest persuaders don't just convince you to leave where you are. They paint a picture of where you could be. They hold a mirror to your potential, not just your pain. They don't say, "You're broken, let me fix you." They say, "You're powerful, and I'm here to wake it up." That's vision. Vision makes people rise. Vision makes people move. Because people aren't hungry for more products, more noise, more empty promises. They're hungry for meaning, for purpose, for a story worth stepping into. And if you can describe the future better than they can imagine it, they'll follow you straight into it. But here's the catch. You cannot give a vision you haven't seen yourself. You must have tasted it, touched it, believed it. You must speak of the mountaintop because you've climbed either because you're climbing it now. If your vision is borrowed, recycled, half believed, no one will follow you because we can't lead people into places we're not willing to go. So before you try to get anyone else to say yes, you need to say yes to your own vision. Yes to the work. Yes to the responsibility. Yes to the pressure of carrying purpose in a world that celebrates noise over truth. And when your yes is real, when your yes has roots, others will feel it. Let's bring in the muscle that supports it all. Discipline. Because you can have clarity. You can have belief. You can even have vision. But if you don't have discipline, you will be inconsistent. And inconsistency kills persuasion. One day you're lit with energy, the next day you disappear. One day you're inspiring, the next day you're scrambling. And people notice because consistency builds credibility. Discipline says, you can count on me. I don't show up only when I feel like it. I show up because I said I would. You want to persuade others? Start by keeping the promises you make to yourself. If you say you're going to study, do it. If you say you're going to train, do it. If you say you're going to build, speak, write, lead, do it. Not perfectly, but persistently. Because when you respect your own word, others begin to trust it too. Discipline doesn't make you robotic. Discipline makes you reliable. And in a world filled with broken promises, unreliability, and fake charisma, being real, consistent, and clear is your greatest competitive edge. Let's now talk about what turns words into motion. Action. You can know all the techniques. You can read all the books. You can listen to all the speeches. But none of it matters until you use it. Until you test it. Until you risk hearing no. Because here's the truth. Persuasion is not theory. It's practice. It's sweat. It's rhythm. It's rejection. It's recalibration. And every great persuader you admire today, they weren't born with the ability. They built it through awkward conversations, through feedback, through misfires, through refinement. So stop waiting until you know enough. Stop preparing endlessly. Stop thinking your confidence will come before you act. Confidence doesn't precede action. Confidence is the reward for courage. Say that again. Confidence is the reward for courage. It's the fruit of showing up again and again, even when your voice shakes, even when the room goes cold, even when they don't buy, even when they don't clap, because you're becoming the person who leads anyway. That's real power. That's real persuasion. And when people see that you don't flinch, that you don't back down, when the yes doesn't come immediately, they respect you. Because the world doesn't just need convincing voices. It needs convicted ones. Ones that don't sway in the wind of opinion. Ones that are rooted in principle. Ones that act from alignment, not approval. And when your action matches your message, when your life is your pitch, people say yes before you even open your mouth. Because the world doesn't just need more voices. It needs more anchors. People who don't get blown away by rejection. People who aren't addicted to applause. People who can walk into a room, speak truth with calm fire, and leave even if no one claps, knowing they did what needed to be done. That's rare. That's real. That's irresistible. You want to know what makes people say yes without hesitation? It's alignment. When your words match your energy, when your actions match your message, when your story matches your standards, you become undeniable. You become someone others want to follow, not because you told them to, but because they feel safer in your direction than in their own hesitation. And here's another truth. People don't just say yes to you. They say yes to who they become in your presence. They say yes to the version of themselves you reflect back to them. So, if you want to be more persuasive, stop obsessing over your pitch and start elevating your presence. Because presence creates permission. When someone feels seen by you, when someone feels understood by you, when someone feels lifted by the way you hold space for their highest self, they say yes because they want more of that. They want more of themselves, the way you showed them they could be. That's not sales. That's service. That's not closing. That's calling. Because great persuasion isn't about pushing people across the finish line. It's about drawing out the hero that's been waiting to rise. So now we arrive at one of the most overlooked, yet most potent pieces of persuasion. Gratitude. Yes, gratitude. Why? Because gratitude is grounding. Gratitude keeps your influence from turning into arrogance. It keeps your power pure. When you're grateful not just for outcomes, but for the opportunity to speak, to serve, to lead you, stop sounding like a manipulator and start sounding like a missionary. And people can feel that difference. Gratitude brings humility. Humility brings trust. And trust opens doors that strategy alone never could. When you enter a conversation with a heart full of appreciation, not entitlement, you don't try to extract value from others. You add value. You elevate. You uplift. You give without keeping score. And in doing so, people lean closer. They listen longer. And more often than not, they say yes. Not just to your offer, but to your energy. Let's move forward to something that separates the amateurs from the artists. Adaptability. Because you can be the most skilled speaker in the world, but if you can't read the room, you'll lose the room. If you can't sense when to lean in and when to pull back, if you can't pivot when someone's guard goes up, if you deliver a scripted monologue while ignoring the signals right in front of you, you become predictable. And persuasion dies in predictability. The greatest persuaders are not locked into scripts, they're synchronized with the moment. They listen, they feel, they observe, they respond. They adjust their tone, their pace, their volume, their story, not to manipulate, but to meet people where they are. Because if you meet people where they are, you can take them where they've never been. But if you preach from a distance, you'll never move them an inch. So ask yourself, are you trying to be impressive or impactful? Because adaptability is not weakness, it's wisdom. You're not changing your truth. You're changing your delivery so that the truth actually lands. This is where resilience enters. Because, let's be honest, there will be people who don't say yes. There will be doors that don't open. There will be audiences that stare blankly, clients who ghost you, critics who mock you, and even friends who doubt you. And in those moments, your ego will want to shut down, to pull back, to protect itself from rejection. But your mission has to be stronger than your pride. Because if one no can make you question your message, you were never carrying a message. You were carrying a need for approval. But if you can keep speaking truth even when it echoes, if you can keep showing up even when your voice trembles, if you can hold your ground not with aggression but with peaceful certainty, you become unshakable. And that is when people start to trust you. Because they're not just watching what you say, they're watching what you do when it's hard. Resilience is persuasive. Because when others fold and you stay, when others fade and you remain, when others doubt and you still deliver, people can't ignore you anymore. Because you've become something very few ever become. Reliable. Reliable people are rare. And what is rare becomes valuable. In a world where people quit at the first sign of discomfort, in a world where everyone wants to be heard but few want to listen, in a world where people show up only when it's easy, you become persuasive the moment you consistently do what others refuse to. You show up, not for attention, but out of alignment. You speak, not to impress, but to impact. You ask, not to control, but to connect. This is the kind of reliability that moves nations, the kind of reliability that builds movements, the kind of reliability that makes your yes powerful and your no respected. And now let's go to the final piece, learning. See, persuasion is not a final destination. It's not a medal you earn and hang on your chest forever. It's a practice, a process, a path of endless refinement. Because people change, culture changes, language shifts, contexts evolve. So the master persuader never stops learning. You study human behavior not out of manipulation, but out of curiosity. You listen, not just to respond, but to understand. You watch great communicators not to copy their tactics, but to understand their timing, rhythm, energy. Because persuasion is as much about timing as it is about technique. It's the dance of knowing when to pause, when to punch, when to whisper, when to rise. And the only way to learn that is to keep showing up, to speak and stumble, to ask and misstep, to risk rejection again and again, not because you enjoy it, but because your mission matters more than your comfort. Learning makes you dangerous because now your message isn't frozen in time, it's alive. It breathes, it adapts, it grows. And people don't want perfection, they want real. They want someone who grows with them, who learns, adjusts, listens, applies, improves. Someone who doesn't pretend to know it all, but shows they're committed to getting better, to serving better, to communicating with excellence. And excellence is magnetic, not perfection excellence. Excellence says, I take this seriously. I honor your attention. I value your time. So I bring my best every time. That's what changes lives. Not a clever phrase, not a viral slogan, but a consistent, evolving, deeply human voice yours. A voice that has wrestled with doubt and chosen courage. A voice that has met rejection and chosen resilience. A voice that has failed and learned and stood back up, not as a victim, not as a salesman, but as a leader. And so I leave you with this. If you want to be persuasive, become someone worth listening to. Not because you're the loudest, not because you know the most, but because you've earned your voice, because you've lived what you teach, because your presence calms the room, your story lifts the room, and your words move the room. That's persuasion, not a trick, not a script, but a transformation in you first, and through you in others. So speak, stand tall, be clear, be grounded, serve, invite, connect, challenge, and always believe in what you're asking people to believe in. Because if you do that long enough, deep enough, loud enough with your life, you'll never have to push people to say yes. They'll say it willingly because the truth in your voice reminded them of the truth in their own. And that is the highest persuasion of all. Imagine this. You walk into a room and you don't need to speak loudly. No gimmicks, no proving. You simply stand there steady as a mountain. Your eyes don't seek approval, they offer trust. Your voice doesn't scream to be heard, it lands straight into people's hearts. Your presence silences the room. Not because you are intimidating, but because you are so clear, so grounded, so real, you cannot be ignored. And when you speak, people listen, not just with their ears, but with their entire being. Because in your words, they don't just hear your message, they hear their own calling. You're not persuading them for a yes. You're awakening what has been sleeping inside them. You're not manipulating, you're illuminating. You're not shouting, you're stirring. That is real power. Power that doesn't come from force, but from honesty, integrity, and the unshakable alignment of your soul. Power that doesn't come from making people believe in you, but from helping them believe again in themselves. And if there is one truth I want you to carve into your spirit, it is this. Persuasion does not begin with others. It begins with you. You are the message. You are the mirror. You are the gateway others will walk through to find the greatest version of themselves. And only when you live that truth, only when you commit to being a fire not to burn, but to ignite, you will not only persuade, you will transform the world.